Okay, last 20 minutes here. Thought we could bullshit a little bit more since we do such a good job of doing that.
Right, like I said, it's probably not all that interesting this week, but I hope it has been interesting with some of the people that have dropped us messages, so that works well. And if anybody would like to give us a call, the lines are wide open. And so, what else do you want to get into, Gabi?
You know, I thought we should talk about interesting paragliding experiences, Dad. What's the stupidest thing you've ever done paragliding?
Well, I can remember
Where do you
one of
start?
the stupidest things that I ever did.
Was introducing me to it.
I was taking some guys from Canada on a tour, and it was one of these really, really blown out days. And I mean, the wind was blowing 20 plus, and we couldn't find anything. So we decided to go down to the Bull Ring by the sea, which is right on the Mexican border of San Diego and Tijuana. And we found a hill that was probably about 200 feet high. And I said, well, I'm sure I can launch at the bottom of the hill and just fly this hill. And I'd never flown it before, but I said, it looks small enough. We can probably launch. And I remember pulling my glider up and getting hit by this wind. And all of a sudden, I was flying at a inverted position about 10 feet off the ground. And my glider was not over my head, but it was about 10 feet off the ground. And I was going up the hill. And we flew the whole 200 feet, 10 feet off the ground, going up the hill at about 20 plus miles an hour. And when I got over the back of the hill, I got rotored, and I fell into a small bush about 10 foot high. And I stopped on the edge of a quarry pit that dropped about 300 feet vertical straight down. And I was about 10 feet off the edge of that when I hit the bushes. And I didn't know the quarry was there because I never went up to check out the top of the site. And it was a windy day, and I just thought I was going to get lifted off the ground and be able to fly right at the base of that 200-foot hill. But after, I got blown over the top and landed in the back of these trees back there, the guys that were with me came running up, and they were just horrified. They said it was the most unbelievable thing. My glider was literally just drugged right up the hill 10 feet off the ground with me flying right behind it. And I thought from that point on, I'd never, ever fly a site without going up to the top to see what was at the top. That was one really, and I was lucky I didn't even get hurt, but I could have been. And that was probably the stupidest thing I've ever done.
Okay.
I've done multiple stupid things. That's just one of them.
That's the worst you've done, Dad? Come on.
Yeah, well, that could have been pretty traumatic.
I had
a very happy ending.
All right, I'm gonna share a little story. This one actually wasn't me, but this was one of the funniest things that I ever witnessed as an instructor was in the PI when I was living in the Philippines, and I shouldn't mention his name, but Armin came to visit. I don't think he's listening to the show down in South America right now. But he came to visit me, and the day he gets off the plane, it just looks epic for soaring. And he'd been on the plane, so he's pretty jet lagged. Apparently, he'd been having a bit of a party on the plane with the cute girl sitting next to him, and so he's not feeling super coherent. We get out to the flying site, and we get out to we're flying from this golf course, this really, really, really upscale golf course, and we launch from this golf course that's overlooking this huge valley, and they have gondolas going from the valley where they have a small little miniature course up to the top, and so Armin launches. He's flying my glider. He's having a great flight. He's doing some wing overs and stuff and having a great time, and he comes in for a top landing because I radio him. Yeah, Armin, come on in and land. We got some students that I got to get up in the air and whatnot. And he comes in, he comes flying in, and he doesn't see the gondola wires. And the next thing you know, Armin's body stops, and the glider doesn't stop. And it just kind of flies over, and it slides kind of via the lines down the gondola wires. The canopy hangs, and then it just drops out, and it's kind of crumpled up, and then pops back up and starts flying again. But poor Armin. Armin comes up afterwards, and he's got a bruise. That's about 3 inches thick or wide along his ribs, wow. And you can see that it's steel cable. You can see the little lines of the steel cable. The poor guy, and I felt so bad. I'm like, yeah, welcome to flying in the Philippines, and he's like, man, there's only gondolas on ski lifts. What the heck's it doing, here in the middle of the jungle, at this golf course? And of course he didn't notice it, and I failed to mention it to him, and that also was a big learning lesson for me, but it's kind of a funny incident. So
okay, so what's the stupidest thing that you've done?
Jesus, I mean, just okay, yesterday.
Look, we only got a half an hour for the show.
I'm like, just yesterday. No, I mean, I don't know. When I was living in Southeast Asia, I had so many antics, and just every day we tried to find. Every day almost every day we got to fly, but something went wrong, and it was just one of those things where I look back now and I'm like, how did I ever live through that experience? How did my students ever live through those experiences? And I just thank God for how much I learned from it, because it's very difficult to develop flying in a country where it's never been developed before.
Right.
It's very difficult to establish new sites that have never been flown, and understand weather patterns that are completely foreign to you.
We have to get some people on the show from the PI. You've had some really good people that you flew with there, some old pilots that were pioneers out there. And
actually, that's true. I met we call him the granddaddy of flying in Asia, but one of the gentlemen I met, Albert, was he was one of the guys that
a good guy, huh?
Yeah, and he was one of the first guys to take lessons from the Moyes brothers back in I think it was 69 or 70 or something like that. So he must have been one of the first hang gliding pilots around. You know? And I had some really good people out there.
You had a lot of good people out there, and you had a nice school, and a lot of good people in it. A lot of good ideas. We'll have to see if we can roust out some PI people and get on the show here in the coming weeks.
Absolutely,
that'd be fun. Well, I'm looking forward to this year. We're going to have some very, very interesting guests coming online here throughout the year on the Paraglider Show, and we would like to encourage any of you that are listening to give us a call or drop us an email at info@flytory.com. If there's some things that you'd like to have discussed on the show, or if you'd like to open it up to some broader subjects, whatever, let us know. We'd love to invite your participation, either your questions or things that you think would be interesting. We'd love to hear from you.
We could use your recommendations on who you'd like to hear on the show. We've had some different manufacturers. Obviously, we're a bit biased, but we've had some different manufacturers on the air, that some different designers, test pilots. Mike Kuhn, going to be an acro pilot, cross-country pilots. What kind of things interest you guys? Who do you want to hear from? Who do you want to ask questions of? What's the good list? What's the bad list on the show? Maybe we had some guests that weren't so interesting. Who we need to have on the show more often are like Jockey and Bob Drury and Hugh Miller and all those cats, because those guys are pretty funny. So,
well, let's see. Murray, talking about interesting guests that we have on the show, I think we have Murray online. Murray.
Hi. How's everybody in the States? Is the fog cleared?
No.
Are you in the studio? Have you got windows in the studio?
Yeah, no, it wasn't clear this morning, but it's going to burn off. It burns off every day.
It was just a quick one with the bit about the gondola wire. There was one of the guys that was with us, and I was actually staying up at his cottage way up the back of Beyond, and we were going out for a very early morning flight, just a sort of quick half-hour flight before he was going to work. Walked up this site, and we walked past the landing ground, and I deliberately did not mention a specific hazard. Now, we discussed all the normal hazards, which were the phone lines, the power lines, the trees, the river, the road.
Right.
There was a single power line runs right across the width of the landing strip.
And quite apparent from the takeoff area?
No. Even walking past it, you didn't notice it because there were no poles. It was a long span, single wire, no poles. I deliberately didn't mention it. When we got up to the top, we assessed the conditions, all the rest of it. He decided that allowing for early morning, allowing for the conditions, no, he was going to walk back down. Great. Then I said, right, when you walk back down, I want you to have a really good look at the landing zone and add the shock effect. Wow. I didn't notice that part of light.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're going to be flying, if you had decided to fly down, I'd have mentioned it, discussed it, and all the rest of it, and the alternatives. And there were plenty of alternatives for landing. But the obvious place to land, there was a wire with no poles. It was about 1.5 times the stretch you would normally expect between poles as a minimum, nearer 2. And by deliberately not mentioning it, because he decided not to fly down, he had the shock effect. Once you've had that shock effect in a safe manner, you're not likely to make the same mistake twice.
Perfect. So, moral of the story?
Moral of the story is, again, work on the assumption that there's a hazard you've not spotted. Plan for recovery for those hazards in training scenarios. In other words, practice coming into land with somebody with a paper ribbon across an area.
Right on. Murray, that's it for the show today.
All the best. Catch you guys next week.
Thanks for the comments, bud.
Murray.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, Gabriel, it's been a fast, quick show, and appreciate all of you out there. We're going to be with you next week, and again, we will be interviewing Mad Mike Cancun. And so this is the Paraglider Show on WSRadio.com, the worldwide leader in Internet phone.